Welcome back to JinnZaar. Tonight we come to the final and most dangerous chapter of our series on the 12 type of forbidden black magic. Tonight we enter the domain of destruction. We are moving away from love. We are moving away from greed. Tonight is about pure malice, envy, and the desire to end a human life. Before we begin our journey into the dark, remember that you can share your experiences with us. There are three ways you can share your paranormal incidents with this channel. First, you can join us live right now by clicking on the StreamYard link pinned in the live chat section. Come on the camera and tell us your story directly. Second, you can WhatsApp your story as a voice note to the official WhatsApp channel. Third, you can email us your detailed story at our email address below. If you have not subscribed our channel yet, please do subscribe right now and press the bell icon to stay updated. Tonight, we must speak with absolute seriousness. The four practices we are uncovering, Santau, Santet, Leyak, and Penutup Rezeki, are strictly prohibited and condemned by all religious and civil authorities. They are considered capital spiritual sin. We do not share these details to intrigue you, but to warn you, to document the cultural truth of the region, and to show you the terrible, inescapable consequences. What happens when humans use the unseen world to destroy the other. Let's begin with the first form of destruction. But before we start, I want to tell my Urdu and Hindi speaking viewers that we have started another channel, JinnZaar Urdu, that is dedicated for all the Urdu and Hindi content. So if you are an Urdu or Hindi speaker, just go and subscribe our channel, and we will be doing all the live streams over there in Hindi and Urdu. Let us look at Santau. This is one of the most feared and agony form of black magic because it is a combination of physical poison and spiritual curses. People who use Santau are driven by deep, burning jealousy. They want to see their victims suffer a slow, painful death, wasting away until nothing is left. The preparation of Santau is a long and disgusting process. The practitioner gathers deadly material from the physical world. They use crushed glass ground into fine powder, the microscopic hairs from specific type of bamboo that slice open the throat, poisonous plants, dried venom from scorpion and snakes, and the ash of the dead animal. The practitioner takes this toxic mixture and sits in a dark room, chanting forbidden words over it for days, inviting a malicious jinn to bind itself to the powder. There are two ways this curse is delivered. The first is through food or drink, where a tiny amount is slipped into the victim's meal. The second and most terrifying way is called Santau Angin, or the poison of the wind. The practitioner stands outside at night, faces the direction of the victim's house and blows the powder into the air while chanting. The jinn carries the invisible poison through the wind, straight into the victim's lungs. Once it enters the body, the nightmare begins. There is a detailed account of a young man named Hazik. He was a healthy, athletic person who had just received a big promotion on his job. One day, one of his close colleagues was consumed by jealousy and decided to ruin him. He used Santau against Hazik. It started with a small cough. Hazik thought it was just a regular cold, but within a week, the cough became violent. Every time he coughed, he felt a sharp, cutting pain deep in his chest, as if he were swallowing razor blades. He went through he went to the hospital. Doctors took x-ray of his lungs, but they couldn't see anything. Yet Hazik was changing. He began to lose weight rapidly. His skin turned dark and dry, hugging his bones. The horror turned physical. One night, Hazik had a coughing fit so severe he fell to the floor. When he pulled his hand away from his mouth, it was filled with dark, thick blood mixed with tiny, shiny shards of crushed glass and shards like very tiny black hairs. The glass was physically manifesting inside his lungs, cutting the organs inside out every time he breathed. A, a traditional spiritual healer was brought to the house. The healer tried to perform prayers to expel the jinn, but the curse was too deeply rooted. The jinn inside Hazik spoke through his mouth, laughing and saying, "His lungs belongs to me now. There is nothing left to save." Hazik spent his final days in absolute agony, unable to lie down because the blood would choke him. He died suffocating on his own blood and glass, a completely broken shell of a man. The person who sent the curse thought they had won, but the folklore tells us that the jinn used for Santau always returns to the sender eventually. The colleague who sent the curse lost his own children to a sudden, unexplained respiratory illness. A year later, when you send an invisible blade to cut someone else's throat, that same blade will eventually find your own bloodline. Next, we move to a different form of lethal sorcery known as Santet. While Santau requires a physical powder or wind, Santet is a form of long distance spiritual warfare. It is targeted curse where a sorcerer teleports physical, dangerous objects directly into the internal organs of the victim. To perform Santet, the person who wants to inflict harm must bring the sorcerer an item belonging to the victim. It could be a photograph, a piece of unwashed clothing, a strand of hair, a or even the dirt from the footprints they left behind. The sorcerer uses this item to log onto the victim's spiritual energy. The sorcerer then takes object from the physical world, usually long, rusted iron nails, sewing needles, broken pieces of glass, rusted wire, or sharp animal bones. The sorcerer placed these objects inside a small container or a doll representing the victim. Under a dark ritual surrounding by offering of blood and raw meat, the sorcerer chants the victim's name, calling upon heavy, malevolent jinn. As soon as the sorcerer drive a nail into the doll, the jinn physically teleports that exact rusted nail across miles, materializing it inside the victim's stomach, intestines, or liver. Consider the story of a successful store owner named Ruslan. He had bitter dispute with a rival business over a piece of land. The rival went to the dark sorcerer to execute a Santet curse on Ruslan one afternoon while Ruslan was sitting with his family. He felt a sudden, sharp explosion of pain in his stomach. It was so intense he collapsed to his knees, screaming and clutching his belly. He was rushed to emergency room. The doctors performed an emergency ultrasound. The ultrasound and what they saw on the screen shocked the entire medical staff. Ruslan's stomach and intestines were completely packed with long metallic objects. The surgeon opened up immediately. During the operation, they pulled out 20 long, like rusted iron nails and three pieces of jagged glass from inside his stomach tissues. The doctor were baffled because there were no entry wounds, no scars, and no sign of how these objects entered his digestive system. But the horror didn't stop after the surgery. The next morning, Ruslan woke up screaming in pain again. The nurses ran to his bed and saw his stomach physically stretching and moving from inside, as if something were punching the walls of his skin. They did another scan, and the stomach was once again filled with rusted wire and needles. The curse was still active. The jinn was continuously feeding new objects into his body. Ruslan's internal organs were completely shredded. He died in the hospital bed, vomiting rusted metal and dark fluid. His body became so heavy and bloated that the funeral workers could barely lift him. This is the brutality of Santet. It is a direct, agonying murder through the spiritual world, leaving the victim with no defense unless the sorcerer is stopped. The third type of magic we are uncovering tonight takes us into the deeply terrifying form of physical transformation and folk horror. We are walking about the legend and the practice of Leyak. Unlike the other type of black magics, where a person hires a bomo a practitioner. A Leyak is living human being who chooses to study a highly forbidden text of black magic to transform themselves into demonic entity. During the day, a Leia looks like a normal member of the society. They might be your neighbor, a quiet elderly woman, or a respected shopkeeper. But by night, they practice the ultimate form of witchcraft through rituals that involve mediation in graveyard and like consuming forbidden substances. They learn how to detach their own soul and physical organs from their body at midnight, while their physical torso and legs remain asleep in their bed. The Leok's head physically detached from the neck. The head flies into the night sky, dragging its wet heart, lungs, stomach, and entrails beneath it. Floating through the air, the Leia is driven by a demonic hunger. It flies through villages, searching for specific things to maintain its dark youth and spiritual power. It feeds on the unburied bodies in grave, the blood of pregnant women, and the life force of newborn infants. There is a spine chilling account of a young couple, Farhan and his pregnant wife, Liza, who moved into a house near a dense forest line. In the final month of her pregnancy, Lisa began to complain that she felt an oppressive weight in the house at night. One night, around 2 a.m., Farhan woke up to a strange, wet scratching sound coming from the roof. He thought it was an animal, but then a foul, metallic smell of fresh blood and rot filled the room. Farhan looked toward the bedroom window. Outside, floating in the dark, pressed against the glass, was a human head. It was the face of an old woman from the village, but her eyes were massive, bloodshot, and glowing with a demonic yellow light. Her tongue was long and covered in tusks, and dangling beneath her chin were raw, pulsing internal organs, dripping fluid against the window's pane. The head was staring like intently at Lisa's pregnant stomach, making a low, hungry, clicking sound. Farhan was frozen in absolute terror. He grabbed a heavy wooden stick and smashed the window to attack it. But the head flew backward into the night sky with a loud, screeching laugh that echoed in the entire village. The next morning, Lisa woke up bleeding, lost her child. The entity had spiritually drained the life of the baby through the windows. Farhan went to the old woman's house the next day with the village elders. They found her laying in her bed, looking normal, but she was clutching her neck, which was covered in raw red scars, and she smelled faintly of the same rot Farhan smelled at his windows. The elders knew what she was, but before they could do anything, the woman smiled and, like a twisted smile, closed her eyes and died on the spot. Her soul had been entirely consumed by the demon she became. When you transform your body into a vessel of dark spiritual, you lose your humanity forever. Finally, tonight, we look into a silent, non lethal, but completely destructive form of black magic, Penup, like Penutup Rezeki, which means the closing of prosperity. This is a form of spiritual sabotage used by bitter rival or jealous acquaintances who do not want to kill you physically but want to destroy your life by ensuring you lose every single dollar, your job, your home, until you are ruined and begging on streets. To perform Penutup Rezeki, the, the preparator visits a practitioner who specialized in binding magic. They create an amulet or gather items associated with death, like dirt taken from a fresh grave or cloth used to wrap a dead body. The practitioner performs a ritual to assign a specific type of jinn, a jinn of obstruction, to the victim or the victim's place of business. The jinn does not cause physical pain. Instead, it creates a thick, invisible spiritual wall around the victim. If it is placed on a shop, the jinn casts a glamour over the storefront. To regular people walking by, the shop looks completely dark, empty, or closed, even when the open sign is on and the lights are bright. Sometimes the jinn manipulate this like the senses of the customers, making the shop smell like rotting garbage or dead animals. The moment they step in, driving them away instantly. If it is placed on an individual, it ruins their reputation, causing their bosses or partners to suddenly hate them and fire them for no logical reasons. Let me tell you the story of a man named Daniel who spent years building a successful bakery. He was making an honest living, but his success bred deep hatred in an old friend who was failing in life. The friend used Penutup Rezeki on Daniel's bakery. Overnight, the business collapsed. Daniel would bake like fresh, beautiful bread every morning, but no one would walk into his shop. Regular customers who loved his food would walk right past his store, later telling him they completely missed it or thought the building was abandoned. When people did walk in, they would hold their noses and walk out, complaining of a horrific stench of decay, even though the bakery was spotless clean. Daniel began to lose everything. He couldn't pay his rent, he couldn't buy ingredients, and he fell into massive debt. The stress tore his family apart. His wife left him. His bank account were frozen. He tried to open a small food stall on the street to survive, but the jinn followed him. The moment he set up his stall, the dark rain clouds would form only over his position, or his equipments would inexplicably break down. He was completely blocked from earning a single dime. Daniel lost his mind to depression and despair. He was found one morning inside his empty, foreclosed bakery, having ended his own life out of absolute desperation. The friend who cursed him watched from across the street, smiling at his ruin. But the spiritual law of this universe is absolute. The jinn of obstruction had finished destroying Daniel, so it turned its attention to the person who paid for the contract. Within 2 years, the friend lost his own job. His house caught fire, and he ended up living on the exact same street corner where Daniel used to operate his food stall, ruined by every darkness he unleashed. These are the consequences of the domain of destruction. Every one of these acts is a violent violation of the natural order, and a path to absolute ruin. All moral codes strictly forbid these practices because they destroy the innocent and turn the practitioners into monsters. There is no victory in the dark. There is only a delayed payment that always ends in destruction. This concludes our series on the 12 type of forbidden black magic practiced in Southeast Asia. We have uncovered the price of desire, the vault of greed, and tonight the domain of destruction. But a journey into global darkness doesn't stop here. We are crossing the oceans immediately. Starting tomorrow night, we begin a brand new archive for the JinnZaar Chronicles. We are heading straight into the intense, blood-bound rituals of Africa and South America. We will cover 12 types of forbidden sorcery. We will look into the chilling reality of voodoo and zombification, the dark entity pacts of Brueria, and the lethal curses the West medicines cannot explain. If you thought the witchcraft of this region was terrifying, wait until we open the books on the Atlantic shadow line. You would not miss it. Thank you for spending your night with me. Keep your minds guarded, keep your faith strong, and never look into the shadows for a shortcut. Good night. See you guys in the next session.